Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners, hosted by agency veteran and coach Steve Guberman. Agency Bytes is a podcast focused on delivering actionable agency information from agency experts in about 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners. I'm Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I coach agency owners to build the agency of their dreams. Today, I'm really excited to be here with Brooke Sellas. She's the CEO and visionary behind B Squared Media. They're a boutique digital marketing agency where they own the redefinition of social care, which we'll dig into, for some industry giants like Brother International, Endless Pools, and BCU. And Brooke is also a recent author, which we'll talk about, and a seasoned speaker. So, Brooke, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really hope those bloopers make it to the light of day.
Now they're going to have to. So you launched your agency in 2012.
Yeah.
What led you up to that? What was the story there?
You know, I was working for someone else. I was working for a sales training company. And I was their director of marketing, and they had asked me to create social media revenue streams for that company. So training for social media. And what I quickly found out was that people didn't want training. They just wanted it done for them. Mm-hmm. So I created that whole Done For You program. And then, you know, I guess I can say it now, right, without feeling too guilty, but I basically tested my company on someone else's dollar. And then eventually my dad came to me and said, like, hey, I pitched you to our CMO. She wants to have a meeting with you, but here's the deal. If you win the pitch, you have to do it. I want you to start your own company, essentially. Like, we would be your first client. And I was like, sure, okay. Thinking I wouldn't win the pitch.
Yeah.
And I won the pitch before I even left the building that day. So I had to like run home and start B Squared. That's literally the story. I was like at my dining room table, like furiously figuring out like, how do you start a company?
Awesome. I love that. He pushed you kind of out of that, safe bubble and into, walk through the fear and make it happen. And you've got some security with the first client. A lot of people don't get that. So that's really awesome step.
Yeah, I would say it wasn't really about making the leap. Like, someone pushed me. And I think some people have to get pushed. Like, if it were up to me to make the leap, everybody's like, make the leap, the net will appear. Yep. I don't think I would ever leap. Like, somebody needs to just come through and just push me. And if you're listening and you need to push, let me know.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And thanks, Dad. That's very cool. I love that. And you work with your husband? He's part of the team?
Yeah. So Alex, my husband, joined the team 2 years ago now. So, we've been navigating the waters of working together, like literally being together 24/7. And just him learning the marketing industry in general. He was in staffing for like 20 plus years. So it's a completely different industry that he's in.
Interesting. So he brought the HR side to the table or the recruitment side to the table for you.
Yeah, he's like HR ops. He does all the people management, which is great. I love people, but I hate managing them. It's like my biggest nightmare. And he can do it with his eyes closed. So it was a really complimentary addition to the team.
Yeah. What, as CEO, visionary, B Squared Media, what's your day-to-day typical role like?
It's a lot of reading, writing, and research. So I do a lot of reading, which helps me do a lot of writing, and I do a lot of research, just based on, what are the trends that are happening. As the visionary propelling a company forward, you can't focus on today. You have to focus on like what's coming next week, next month, next year. And it's a tough spot to be in, right? But I will say, with adding Alex to the team 2 years ago, I feel more comfortable taking my eye off of the ball, like what's happening right now today or this week and looking forward. So it's a lot of research and understanding, what are our clients asking for, making sure that I keep an open communication and dialogue happening with them to, what are they seeing? What are their wants? What are some of their concerns or pain points? And then researching those pain points or other things and figuring out how other companies are doing it. But I think just listening, I should say, is a big part of the research, because we wouldn't even have the whole customer care service if I hadn't listened to my clients first and foremost.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is a lot of agencies, owner, founder, CEO, whatever they want to call themselves, they aren't in a position to take themselves out of the day to day to focus on
Yeah.
what's next quarter, 2 quarters down the road. They've got to you have somebody in place, or at some point you put somebody in place, made the decision to get yourself out of that. Was that initially Alex? Did you have like a second in command prior to him that you were able to take yourself out of the day to day?
No, the biggest role I ever had that kind of helped me with that was an ops manager, and that really
Okay.
only came into play, like 3 years prior to Alex. So literally for the past 5 years, I've had helps in some
Hmm.
capacity, but all the years before that, 8, 9 years before that, it was just me doing everything. I was wearing the visionary hat, I was the sales hat, I still am. You're looking at the entire sales team, I'm still the
Hmm.
sales team and the ops hat. And I think, looking back now, I'm amazed at what I did because man, was that a struggle. It was so hard. And it doesn't really allow you to like get out of the muck and focus on what's coming. And what I found over the past, couple of years of really having Alex in play for that role is that so many cool things happen and you really learn more about your business that you ever could working in the business, like
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, when you get out of the cockpit and you're like, all right, let somebody else fly this thing. I'm gonna go work on the engine, or like work on pipeline, funnel, marketing, being visible. Yeah, you get such a different perspective and viewpoint of how the business is actually running, and take yourself out of the day to day. But again, you need that person that you can trust to be like, ops is all on you, client management
Yeah.
is all on you, project management, all that stuff, and getting it off your plate,
Yeah,
piece
it's a
by
lot.
piece, not all at once,
Yeah.
obviously.
And it takes time. And I would say, even if you're not there, which I understand, like I said, for like eight something years, that's where I was, I
Hmm.
would find ways to give yourself like little outlets. So like I have a mastermind group that I belong to. Andy Crestodina, Rich Brooks, Ron Callis, Jillian Vorse used to be a part of it. These are incredible minds who are doing the same thing I'm doing, but we don't necessarily compete in services. And we lay it all down on the table and talk about it and share it, even
Hmm.
the uncomfortable stuff. And that has been such a great resource for me. Um, I have friends who are in the space. I wouldn't call them mentors because we kind of mentor each other,
Hmm.
but some of them I have monthly calls with, some of them I have quarterly calls with, some of them I talk to them like just on a whim, like, oh my gosh, Donna, pick up the phone. I need to talk to you. So find your little outlets like that because I waited, I feel like, too long to even do that.
Mm,
And that's
yeah,
such a big part of being the visionary that I am is listening to these other people who are having the same or similar experiences than I am and how they're struggling and how they're winning and how
yeah.
we can help each other. Honestly, it's not all about me, right? Sometimes it's me helping them, but it gives me everything I need and more.
Vital. Yeah, you've got to have those relationships, people you can lean on, run to. When I had my shop, it was, initially it was, family, friends, other owners in the space, the accountant, the lawyer, the bookkeeper. And then, yeah, we also got a bunch of agency owners together after hours, and we, bounced from agency, conference room to conference room. And mostly it was commiserating, like, aha, you beat me out of that client, and they're a hell client. And then it became more strategic of like, all right, how
Mhm.
did you get to that place? We matured as a group and really started to support one another. And that's what you're saying, like having people that it's symbiotic. Like some days you need the support, some days they need the support, and it supports each other. And so it's vital to have that, plug for mastermind groups all day long. Absolutely.
Yeah, like if you don't know of one, build your own. I'm telling you, just, it's I really there's no word that I can put to it. I just wish I would have done it sooner. And this is something you can do. Whether you're in day 1 of your, business or day 1000. This is something you can definitely make time for and that will be so valuable as long as you have like the right players. I guess
Yeah.
I will say, you know, be intentional about who the players are and what your goals are for the group. Obviously, like you were saying, like it should be strategy more than commiserating, although sometimes it's a lot of
It's
commiserating
all
too.
healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's healthy therapy as well. But be really intentional about who you choose because,
Yeah.
there are some brilliant business minds out there, but not everybody wants to be as open. You have to find that group of people who A, have the experience, but also B, and I think most importantly, are willing to tell the truth. Because
Yep.
sometimes the truth sucks, right? But
So, and I think that's vital. Like, so, and I run a number of mastermind groups of agency owners, and to vet people to make sure they're the right people for it, they have to know to check their egos at the door. They can't suck all the
yes,
air out of the room. They have to have the mindset of um, just non-competitive nature. Like, even
yes,
if we
a thousand
overlap in
percent.
services and geography, that's okay. We're here to support each other, and if that
Yeah,
can't be checked at the door, they're not a good fit for being in a group of other owners.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
if I'm so guarded because I'm nervous you're going to steal my client or my employee or whatever, I'm not going to be valuable to the
It's not
group,
going to
and I'm not
work.
going to get value from the group. So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that you have that support for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Talk about social care. This is like kind of the stools of the legs of your stool that you guys kind of rest on,
Yeah,
and how you market yourself and the key positioning factors that you have.
yeah.
What is
So
social care?
it's interesting. I've recently learned that social care in the UK is like a government program. So I'm like, oh, okay. So maybe, I mean, we are only focused on the US, but I was like, maybe I need to say like social media care, like throw the media in
Yeah.
there, But anyways, it's essentially social media customer care. And that's a little deceiving because when we say customer care, we automatically think of like customer support, which
Hmm.
is focused on retaining the customer or customer loyalty. But what we define social media customer care as at Beat Squared Media is both acquiring and retaining customers. So it's not just your customer, it's your would-be customer. And how we do that with our services is through social media. And it was just listening to clients. I mean, so we would have clients say things like, in the beginning, it was just like, your average social media management. We created the content, we posted the content. If somebody had a comment, we would respond.
Hmm.
Um, and then we started getting clients saying things like, okay, what if I just wanted you to respond? Because we have like an in-house creative team that does the content. And I'm like, okay, so you just want the community management. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll call it community management. Great. And then we get out there and we're like, well, this person has a sales question. Like, do we have like a sales team we should route them to, or an FAQ from sales on how to like answer these questions? And then they're like, oh, we don't have any FAQs around those sales questions, And so then all of a sudden it became like its own little thing that turned into social media customer care. But ultimately it's both attracting and retaining customers through social media.
Okay. And you focus on that for a specific sector or vertical, or where do you
No,
focus?
there's a lot of industries that we serve. Most of them are like what we would say like manufacturing, retail, CPG, consumer packaged goods. But we also work with a lot of finance brands.
Okay.
We work with some robotics companies. We work with a large variety of industries. I think the qualifying factor is do you have conversations that are happening
Hmm.
about your brand, either directly to your brand on social media, like when somebody tags you on one of the platforms, or, if you use social listening, are they talking about you? And that's an important fact because, a lot of brands will say, oh, nobody's talking about the Steve brand. And
Right.
I'll say, huh, well, what are some of your product names, Steve, if you're a product-led company? And you'll give me the names of those products and I'll pop those into a social listening tool and I'll find hundreds of conversations. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily tagging the brand because they don't want to or just because they're talking about the product name, right? So it's finding those conversations. And if you have enough of those that it feels overwhelming, that's where companies bring us in because we work 365 days a year to
Sure.
answer those sales support questions or those customer support questions.
Interesting. I love the positioning of more of the taking care of it as opposed to, I think community management sounds like a babysitter,
It
or
sounds so
like a,
sterile. Yeah.
yeah, I never really cared for that. So I like that positioning for you. Is it
Thank
also
you.
service based? Like, do you leverage this into service based industries?
Yeah, we definitely do that as well. So I mean, it's literally it could work for anyone. I mean, that's what I say the qualifier is. It's like do you have the conversations? If you don't know, go find out, and like I said, it's not just a search of like those
The
mentions.
brand.
It's using
Yeah.
some sort of tool that looks at the brand as a whole, that looks at your products, your stakeholders. Sometimes people are having lots of conversations about your stakeholders that you're not aware of. So I would look at those areas. And then if you don't have the resources or the structure, I mean, what we've found, so we've been delivering the service for almost 7 years now, a little over 6 years. And there's an inherent mismatch between the corporate employee and what happens on social, because what happens on social doesn't just happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Most of the crises we see, guess when they happen? Nighttime, weekend, and always on the holidays. So, we fill that gap for our clients because most of them don't have those resources. And some of them, once they have us fill those gaps, also say, hey, look, just take the whole thing and we'll focus on email and telephone, right?
Yeah.
So we work with the internal customer support and marketing and sales and HR and to kind of route and build out, like, how can we get this person the answer the fastest, which hopefully is through us on that channel of choice or through social, or through, service where they need to set up a time to have somebody come out and service their machine or whatever it is.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. So you've got to have all bases covered. I also think holidays, that's when like the nonsense goes down. But historically, it's when we've seen like brands have really interesting opportunities to like leverage social and respond in a very clever way. And you see the bigger brands do that, Oreo and Wendy's and, JetBlue and things like that. So it's a pretty interesting space to be in. And from a social engagement standpoint, kind of also leverage the standpoint of it's not dead. And like, was there a rumor social engagement was dead?
Yes. And here's what I think it is. Social media was always meant to be social, right? We've all heard this a million times. If you're a marketer and you're listening, social. You have to put the social in social media. La la la. Well, it's finally coming full circle where the consumer has actually gotten more discerning, right? They now understand newsjacking, clickbait, all these things that marketers created to get more dopamine, more clicks out of the consumer on these platforms. And they are still engaging with brands on social, but they're much more discerning about it. And so if you want to build the new dopamine machine, you really have to think about having those social media conversations because, more than half of people who use social media rate brands as good brands on social if they engage in conversations with their consumers. There was a study done by Twitter and Publicis when Twitter was still Twitter. And they found that, right? So sad. They found that consumers actually weight brand conversations on social media just as high and sometimes higher than online reviews.
Sure.
So the new dopamine machine, the new way to get people to keep scrolling or keep hitting your brand or shop from you online is to make sure that you're there and engaging in those conversations when you're asked, but also when you're not, like soliciting the conversations yourself as the brand.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of outbound strategy to engage with people when they're not even expecting it.
Yeah.
But it is interesting how consumers have become so savvy to, the devices are listening and, we'll just be sitting there and I would have spoken about something and my girlfriend might be like, hey, this thing just showed up on my phone and we didn't even mention the brand. It's like,
happens all the time.
They knew what we were talking about. So, yeah. Is that kind of service mindset that you guys work on? Is that what led to you publishing your book? Was that last year or 2022?
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's 2024. You had to remind, this is twice now. You've had to basically be like, Brooke, we're there. 2 years ago now. So not last July, but the July before. And that is what prompted it. What I started to see was that no matter how big or small the company was that we were working with, the problems were all the same. They're no different, right? It didn't matter if you're a $1 billion brand or a small startup. The problems were all the same. And so I really felt like I wanted to get that message out there because I hear people say all the time, oh, well, I'm not an Oreos or a Wendy, which you were mentioning earlier. And I'm like, no. it's actually easier for you to do this if you're
Yeah.
not a Wendy's or an Oreo. Everyone can do this. And by the way, everyone should be doing this because at this point, you've invested how many hours, how much time, how much money into social media, but you're still doing it the wrong way. And the consumer knows better now. So can you
Yeah.
please start doing what I tell you to do? Because I've been saying this all along, think conversation, not campaign. That's our
Right.
motto. It has been for 12 years and it still is.
Yeah, it has to be. Campaigns are, there's a beginning and an end, but if you're kind of constantly trying to have conversations that lead to trust and conversion and things like that, as you outlined, like what that process looks like, there's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you'd be surprised at how many companies have or brands have that acquisition chatter happening on their social
mhm.
channels and don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Right. So that was like tip number 2, find out if people are talking about you, but if they are, start to like label those conversations. Like, is it a innocuous? Is it just part of an ongoing fun conversation? Is it, a sales support question? Meaning like I come to Steve and I'm like, hey Steve, your barbecue grill, does it heat up to 600 degrees? And Steve would come back and be like, yes, it does. Would you like to buy one today? um, and then, or is it, the support question, like a retention question, like, hey, Steve, I bought your grill and you said it went up to 600 degrees, but I can never get it past 450. Help
Right.
me out. Start labeling the conversations because I think what you'll see is you have more acquisition or more sales chatter than you think you do.
Are there probably are, but so this might be a silly loaded question, specific tools that you're using to kind of monitor that, tag it, keep a library of it for the brands? It can't just be a
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
No, gosh. Oh my gosh. No, there are lots of tools that do this. We use and love Sprout Social, but
hmm
the more advanced social media tools typically do this. So you're like middle of the road to more enterprise level tools, and a lot of them even have a specific focus on social media CX or customer experience, customer care. So like Sprinkler is
hmm
one tool, very expensive, yes, but their whole tool is built around the 360 picture,
Right.
not just on social, of taking care of the customer. Sprout recently released an integration with Salesforce, so now you can start to see, if you're a
Interesting.
Salesforce company, a more holistic look and view at what's happening with the customer there too. So I think my advice would be do your homework because there are
hmm
so many wonderful tools. But if you're really trying to do it in a way of, serving the customer or customer experience, you need to be specific about that in your ask or your homework, because
Yeah.
there are amazing, wonderful tools that will help you deliver content and schedule content and things like that. But from a CX perspective and tagging and looking at response times and first touch resolution and things like that, they won't have those metrics built in. And like you said, or you mentioned the spreadsheet, trust me, you don't want to do it that way.
Yeah. No, more of an automated listening, tagging, keeping track
Yeah.
of, and like you leverage the whole customer experience process. A lot of agencies I've seen are getting the foot in the door with general strategy, social media strategy, ongoing content, maybe even paid and organic, and then
Yeah.
converting into that whole you call it social care. I've heard it more, the customer experience through community management and that
Yeah.
very holistic supporting sales with actual marketing, and
Yeah.
trying to bridge those gaps, which is just the ever long marketing world challenge of why can't sales and marketing work together? So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's some opportunity there.
I think you have hit something on the head that I've never actually said out loud, but I guess I've inherently known. This is the bridge between
hmm
marketing and sales. We work with both sides. We have to, because ultimately we do find those acquisition conversations when we're working with a brand. And then we have to say to sales, like, hi, we have people wanting to buy from you. How can we help close that for you? Help me close. And trust me, that's music to every sales team's ears.
Yeah.
So I think, I love that you brought that up, because now I'm going to start saying it. Like, social care is the bridge, that gap,
Yeah.
the bridge that takes care of the gap between sales and marketing.
Well, what I've seen, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, is that when sales can't convert, they blame marketing.
Mm.
And when they don't trust and allow marketing to do their job, sales isn't winning. But the other side is the agency gets blamed for it, as opposed to sales team making changes in their archaic processes typically, or opening their doors to allowing the agency or the marketing team to work together. The other side is when sales is winning and their numbers are being hit, there's very little credit to the marketing process, the agency, the whoever. That's fine. Pay the retainer. We'll keep it going. But
Right.
that relationship has always just been janky. So there you go. Now you can bridge it.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. I mean, obviously on social, there's a lot more retention that we do, right? Like customer loyalty. But it's funny, I read about in the book when we first started to kind of like realize like we needed to separate things as sales support or, retention support, customer support. We went to all of our clients who were customer care clients at the time and we said, hey, how much of the chatter do you think is going to be acquisition? Just, we don't know. We're going to start measuring this and tagging this, out of curiosity, what do you think the baseline is? They all said 0 to 5% would be acquisition.
Wow.
When we actually went through and labeled it all and had some like good data behind us, several months worth, every single one of the brands had at least 20% acquisition. One brand, which was a CPG brand, so they have 12 different products. 4 of their product lines have 60 to 80% acquisition month over month. Like even now, years later, 4 of their product lines. So now we're in talks on building a social selling program through our team for them. So, again, you could do this too. This is not something that I have to do. You could do this at your company, and the smaller you are, the easier it will be.
Mm-hmm.
All they have to do is give us promo codes so that when, Steve is talking to the grill brand now and you're saying, does it heat to 600 degrees? I can say, it does, Steve. Here's a video on how that works. And you say, great, thanks. And we're kind of building some proprietary metrics, or we use some proprietary metrics on like intent, right? And as we see some of those intent signals come to light during this conversation, we then say to Steve, hey, Steve, I'm so glad you've loved all this information. This has been a great conversation. If you buy this grill within the next 48 hours using this promo code, we'll give you free shipping, which is normally like $350 or something like that, right? Like some sort of gift. It doesn't have to be big. The bigger the better, obviously. But then when Steve goes and uses that promo code, guess who that sale gets attributed to? Social media, customer care, right? So now with that bridge we were talking about earlier, we can actually turn around to sales and say, hey, out of, that 80% acquisition equaled or could potentially equal $1 million in revenue, and we closed half, which is $500,000 in revenue. Guess who starts to pay attention? The sales teams, the sales VIPs, the C-suite. Everybody starts to understand finally the value of social media.
Yeah, and the conversations and how you're guiding consumers. I love that. And just coming out of the holidays, I think we saw a ton of that through Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all the social media conversations and marketing, and every ad led to some website that retargeted, that offered a follow-up email that somehow they got knocking on my front door with a promo code. So good job.
Yeah.
You nailed it. Good.
Thank you. No, thank you. I think, and it's not that hard. I mean, like what I just described, like I'm saying, like if you wanted to turn around Steve's Grills tomorrow and do this, you absolutely could.
New business idea. Thank you. Nothing wrong with that. I want to shift gears for a quick minute and throw some random rapid fire questions at you. So,
okay.
What is your latest new? And by the way, in any of these questions, the answer can be personal, professional, digital, physical. No rules here. So, what's your latest new hobby, book, show, something you're binging and can't get enough of?
Oh my God. Well, okay. Some of you may know this if you've been following me for any amount of time, but I'm a huge Housewives fan. I watch every franchise. I don't leave any of them out. So there's that. But the new, what am I binging? Oh my gosh, I'm watching this documentary right now on, I think it's Netflix, and it's about it's the twin diet study. I forget the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a whole episode on meat and meat farming, and Yeah, I might have to become a plant-based eater. That's all I have to say about that.
Amazing. All right. What's a new tool that you integrated into your life, again, physical, digital, personal, professional, that you think like, how did I live without this thing?
Oh, I don't know if I have that outcome yet, but we just found the first and only that I know of small business ABM tool, account-based marketing. It's called Propensity. It's amazing. We are about to launch our first ABM campaign in later this month, the 22nd. So in a couple of weeks. And I'll let you know if it becomes like the most amazing tool in my life. I promise I will. Because I'm happy to shout it loud and proud if it actually is like a great tool for small businesses, because we're always left out because we can't pay $10,000 plus a month for, these tools.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely report back. I'm curious what the tool provides for you from, strategy and implementation from ABM growth. So
I will.
And I'm also super curious, tracking year to year, like what your growth of existing clients versus net new clients was in a previous 12 months versus once you rolled this out for 12 months, and how you're growing your accounts.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll let you know for sure. Like I can tell you, like, our growth for last year was 16%, which we're so lucky to have. I mean, it was a rough year last year. A third of that was through retention, like specifically retention efforts. We focused on retention, and then 2/3 was sales.
Okay. Interesting.
But I'll let you know
can invert
that.
If you can invert that, it'd be a heck of a lot less expensive of sales growth cycle for you.
Yeah.
Interesting. So report back. And then finally, what's one of the most valuable pieces of business advice that you can share?
This is going to sound a little catty, but I don't mean it that way. Like, if you know me, like, I'm not catty unless you deserve it. But I would say, if somebody's sleeping on you, right, tuck them in. Like, the advice, and this is the advice that was given to me for this year, which is why I'm saying this advice. If somebody told me, a consultant that we're working with, Christina Garnett, who used to be with HubSpot, now she's launched her own brand, Pocket CCO. She said, I need to be Brooke, but more out loud. And I took that as, people are sleeping on what I have to say, and so I need to go ahead and tuck them in, right? So that's my advice.
I
be
love that.
Out loud, but don't be rude. Just be a more out loud version of you.
Use the voice you've got. Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. Very cool. I initially took it as, if you're tucking them in, you're leaving them behind because they're not hearing you, but you're like, really get into them. Yeah, and I dig that.
Yeah. Let them know. Like, sing them a song. Sing them your lullaby. Tuck them in.
Well, you heard it here. Watch for the B Squared Media CD that's going to come out with the songs that Brooke is going to lullaby people to sleep with.
Oh, my God. You do not want to hear my singing voice.
Bedtime with Brooke, we'll call it. Awesome.
Oh, no.
Brooke, thank you so much for joining me today. Really excited for all the things you've got going on for the agency this year and speaking opportunities ahead, and just grateful for the opportunity to share your experience with the listeners. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks again for tuning in to Agency Bytes. If you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love to hear about, go to agencyoutsight.com/podcast-guest and nominate them.